Welcome into another Warchant one-on-one. This is Ira Schoffel, managing editor of Warchant.com, and I'm joined today by a guy you guys know for sure from his days playing fullback at Florida State from 2013 to 2016, Freddie Stevenson, who is now an author, a documentary filmmaker, and just an all-around positive presence in the Florida State fan base and really beyond that as well. We're going to go into some of that, so talk about your Florida State days, talk about the movie that just came out, the book, and your journey, and just kind of tell people your story. I know you've told your story a bunch of times, but this is a good chance for you to tell it again to some of our audience. So thanks for joining me, Freddie. How you doing?
And I'm great. I appreciate you guys having me. I've been following your work for a while, and I just want to salute you, give you your flowers, man. You're one of the good guys in FSU media, so it's dope to be sitting down with you.
I appreciate it, man. Hey, listen, you if there was, in the NFL, they do things where I think the media will give awards to certain football players that are the most accessible to the media. And you definitely would have won that during your career at Florida State. Cause man, a couple of, after the national championship, a couple of the years later that weren't quite to the level of that. I know some of your teammates didn't always want to come talk to the media, but you always were awesome. You always came in and answered whatever questions, whether it was a big win or a tough loss. So you've always had a lot of respect from us as well. So I appreciate that. So yeah, man, we'll touch on your Florida State career, and I kind of wrestled with how to approach this interview because on the one hand, I kind of want to start from the beginning of your journey because that's really what your book and the documentary are about. But I kind of think I'm going to go backwards a little bit to why you decided to write the book. When your playing career was over, you were in the NFL for a little bit, and then trying to, I guess, figure out your next steps. What caused you to decide to write Trials to Triumph, which is the book that you published, I guess, within the last couple of years?
Yeah, so in 2017, I was cut from the Chicago Bears team at the end of the preseason, bounced around a bit trying to get back in the NFL. Things never stuck, and it was weird for me throughout the process. Just as the type of player that I was, especially at the fullback position, there were not a lot of guys with my skill set. So going in and having opportunities not necessarily work out for whatever reason, I was like, man, it has to be a reason this isn't happening because on the field, I'm making it happen. And then the AAF league, when I went in that and then that league folded, it was kind of like me just understanding like maybe I'm here for a different reason. Maybe it's not happening for a reason because I'm handling all my business, I'm making plays, I'm standing out, but this door just keeps getting closed on me. And I just look back at my life and I was like, man, I believe that everything I've been through up to this point is for a reason. And I truly need to tell this story to somebody that may be struggling going through this transition. So ultimately it started out just as something to help athletes out after that transition once they move on into the real world. And it kind of turned into something bigger with time. But ultimately it started off as just helping these athletes as they transition.
I think probably everybody in the world thinks that they've got a book they could write, and because we all have stories, whatever you've gone through, but the process of actually doing it, there's a very few people that actually do it. And I've tinkered with some book projects through the years, and it's a lot of work and effort. What was that like, and how did you get through that? Because you got other stuff, you've got family things and work and other stuff. How were you able to find the discipline to go write a book?
Yeah, it isn't easy. Like anybody I tell that tells me they want to write a book, I say, get it done right now, because I hit a wall in the process of writing the book and I almost didn't get it done. But my fiance, she was ultimately the reason that I ended up getting it done. She stayed on me and I just continued to push it forward. But it's easy to put it off. It's easy to get discouraged throughout the process because ultimately when you never wrote a book before, you think, man, are people going to like this story? Is it needed? But one thing I tell people now that I've written my book, I didn't know the response it was going to have. I just figured like it may help a few athletes out. And if that's your purpose, we all have had stories that are impactful to each and every one of us. We have things that we've been through. That's why Trials of Triumph is something that I feel like can relate to everybody. We all had our different type of trials throughout our life. So your story can help somebody in a way that mine can't. Like we all have our unique stories, our unique gifts that were given to us from birth. You have something that I don't have. I have something you don't have. So if you write a book, it's going to help people that are struggling with that same exact thing. So I tell people, man, no, you may be discouraged, but write the book. You never know who it may help. Like I just wrote my book to help a few athletes out. And then the pandemic hit and people outside of sports started reading my book. And that's when it became something more than I could ever imagine.
So, obviously the story that everybody talks about it's got you interviews, and you've been on national TV at different shows, and certainly podcasts and articles. The McDonald's story, which is, I think something a lot of people probably can't relate to, but I think it hits people. So I don't know if you want to share. I know you've shared the story a million times, man. But if you could kind of tell it one more time and maybe give a little more background of, how tough things were for your mom and raising the kids, and how you guys kind of, got through some of those challenges.
Yeah. So I'll kind of dig into it. Like everybody now, they see the story and they're like, hold on, where's the father in the situation? Right. But yeah, at the time, my father was incarcerated in prison for drug trafficking. And my mother was raising 5 kids on her own, working 2 to 3 jobs, trying to make ends meet. And while she's sending money to my dad to call him, put money on his books and everything, and then trying to take care of bills, things just got hard. We're moving around from place to place. It's tough because if you break something in somebody's house, they kick you out. So we found ourselves, without places to stay a lot. And one day, my baby sister, she's super young at this time. It's like 8 in the evening. We haven't eaten. She's crying bad. And my mother, she just gathers everybody up, walks us around, and we come across a McDonald's. After walking for a while, she walks us inside, orders a cheeseburger. And we're like, what's going on? Like, this is one cheeseburger. And we've had situations where all we had was, just a piece of bread to eat, but we all had our own individual pieces. Mm-hmm. And like, man, just one burger. Like, and we haven't eaten all day. So we're thinking, like, how are we gonna make this work? And we didn't know she only had $1 to her name. So she orders the cheeseburger. The total comes out to $1.05. And she didn't have the nickel. She's asking the cashier if it's okay. And for some reason, the lady was being difficult that day. So my mom has to go around McDonald's, beg for a nickel. Somebody was generous enough to give it to her. She grabs it, kind of embarrassed. At this point, everybody's looking at us. Then she takes us outside, starts slicing it into 5 pieces, hands it out to me and my brothers and sisters, and we just started eating immediately. And then we didn't, throughout the process, we didn't even think to ask my mom, because she didn't slice a piece for her. We didn't think to ask her, but my older sister noticed that she wasn't eating, and then she stopped us, like, man, Mom's not eating. So we always tried to offer her a piece, and she just turned it down, burst into tears, and that's a moment that, that sticks with me throughout everything.
Yeah, man, it's, in homelessness, obviously it's a crisis everywhere, and, not just in Bartow or Tallahassee, it's everywhere. And, and it's just, you see people that don't have anything, but I think at the time you probably don't, I don't know, do you realize how hard you guys have it, or do you just think that that's what life is? Because sometimes when you're in a situation, you don't realize, maybe how bad it is. And if you had, maybe it might've just been discouraging. Like, how did that affect you, growing up?
Yeah, I think at the time we just thought that that's what the world was.
Right.
Like the people that we were getting help from were, struggling as well. Like, right. I remember one lady, we would go over her house and she turned everything off on us, the air and everything. She's trying to make it difficult on us, but also like all these kids are running up a bill. Right. So it's kind of hard to get help in those situations. So we didn't necessarily know what else was out there until later. We didn't know that we were struggling like we were struggling. Then your kids, man, you make the best of a bad situation. And that's ultimately what we did. And
there's, a lot of happy endings to your story. Obviously your dad, was able to get out of prison, and I think he's become a big part of your life. Right. And family's doing well. And then obviously, you go to Florida State on scholarship, and I just imagine, like, what was that like as a Florida State football player, now getting treated sometimes like, you live in kind of the high life in terms of, if you guys go on the road for a football game, you're staying in high class hotels and eating good food. And that's just, a few years from, I'm sure a lot of the college football players have that experience. What's that, I guess, just, what's that like going from where you came from to that?
Yeah, I remember my freshman year when we traveled to play Pitt in 2013. We traveled to play Pitt, and that was my first time ever getting on a plane. Like in high school, I never took the official visits. I committed before the state, and I was locked in the whole entire way.
Why didn't you take your official visits, man?
Yeah, I didn't. I was like, one thing. Like my dad, he's like that as well. As like, man, don't commit unless you're ready, and I want you to understand what commitment means. So even though you haven't signed that paperwork, once you commit, we're locked in. Like you got to honor your word as a man. It's like you're gonna make your own decision, but I'm gonna let you know this now. As a man, once you commit to something, you do it. And if you're not ready, if you have any doubts, don't do it. Don't rush it just because of the emotion. But once you commit, you do it. You stick with it. And that kind of helped me throughout the process, especially at Florida State when the position changed and everything happened. Just commit and stick with it. But that's why I didn't take my official visits, and it all worked out for the best. So I had never rode a plane before, flew on a plane. So we get to Pitt and I'm nervous. I'm like, I don't know what's gonna happen. But then once we get in the air, at the time, just flying and doing different things, I'm like, man, this is crazy. Like just to do this and be able to travel the world because of this sport. You never take it for granted, especially when you think about what I came up through. It's a blessing. I think a lot of athletes need to understand that even if you're not a guy that gets to play on the field, and a lot of people would kill to be in your shoes. Right. So just to understand how blessed you are to have the opportunity. If you don't get to play, just think about the relationships that you're building at this level. Like I wasn't the best player, I was an average guy, just worked extraordinary hard, I had extraordinary work ethic. And I found ways to get on the field and sacrifice. So now today, people go out their way to help me out. So just think about these relationships that you're able to build at this level, whether it's coaching staff, people on the campus, teachers, so many different people. You have an opportunity of a lifetime to change your life. And that's one thing that was a blessing to me, and I want athletes to realize.
Did you realize that at the time?
I think a little bit, but not as much as now I understand more, but I didn't take advantage to the full extent in college.
So, so you write the book and you get it published and you've got it out there. And I don't think it, like you said, the sales right off the bat, you didn't know how to, market it and all that. And then, when the pandemic hit, that's when it really took off. When did you start hearing back from people about how impactful it was? And I know you've shared a lot of the tweets from people and things like that, but when did you realize that, the impact it was having on people that read it?
Yeah, I was in the process of, getting something else, like, man, maybe it's time to write another book. People aren't really rocking with this book. It isn't doing well. Only people that are buying it are my family and, a few Florida State fans. Mm-hmm. And I just remember one guy reaching out, and this is before the book starts to take off. He was like, man, you don't know me. I've never watched sports. I don't know who you are, but I saw your name in the book, and I just looked you up. I came across your book on Amazon, and I just lost my job. My family's turning on me. Everything's downhill. It's during the pandemic. He's like, man, your book, I don't know. Once I started it, I couldn't stop. And it kept me from taking my life. Like, I'm crying tears right now. Wow. And when he told me that, it's like, forget this next book, this next project. You got to continue pushing this because there's something bigger behind this. You're going to impact lives across the world. That's truly what I believe in. I think like within 3 months, I seen a purchase of my book happen in China. I'm like, hold on. And then it was in Spain and like people were buying it from Germany. I'm like, what? This is crazy. So at that point, I'm like, okay. And then publishers started reaching out to me and they're like, man, we believe that we can get your story on different platforms. So I ultimately got one. And then that's when things started happening. And that's when you get the bestseller.
Right. Yeah. Cause then now all of a sudden you're doing TV shows, around the country and all that stuff. So that, obviously that's, a validation, I guess, to some degree, but then how did the idea to turn it into a documentary come about? And how did, what was that process like?
Yeah. So one of the interviews that I did, the people told me, they're like, man, we're going to turn your story into a film. And like, it's a guy, he works with Warner Brothers. He's like, we're going to turn it into a film. He's like, I work with Warner Brothers. I got some other people in Warner Brothers that they love your story. And I wasn't paying them any mind. So time goes by, months go by, and I'm like, he's just talking. So then the guy that's partnered with Netflix, he has a few films on Netflix, and it's a one documentary that's doing pretty well. I believe it won an Emmy. And it's crazy. I met this guy doing my back to school bash. Like, he does a lot of stuff in the community, giving book bags, and I was buying backpacks from him. And he was like, yeah, tell me a little bit more about you. Then he hears the story, digs into me. He was like, yo, we need to work and turn this into a documentary. So, like, we got into deep negotiation with them, but it never really happened. Then the guys from Warner Brothers reached back out and like, man, we're going to create this new platform. The first ever NFT streaming platform. We think it's going to be something that within the next 5 years drives the media game. Kind of how, with Bitcoin, they're like, man, everybody slept on Bitcoin years ago. Now everybody wants a Bitcoin. And we think that's going to be the same with NFTs. Like, now you see people selling houses as NFTs. Mm-hmm. So they got me into the vision, and we ultimately got it done. I didn't know what to expect, but one thing they told me early on in the process, like, man, the reason that I want to branch out from Warner Brothers and do my own thing is, I just see so many people get screwed over in this industry, and I want to tell the stories that get overlooked, the stories that are powerful that don't get told, and get away from a lot of the BS. And I truly believe stories like yours need to be heard. So we got it done. They said they were going to take care of me, and that's what they did. Like, just from the percentages to like everything down. Like, man, Freddie, we want you to tell your story how you want to tell it. So you direct your own film. We work with whoever you want to work with. We're going to get it done however you want to get it done. We're working for you. So don't look at the fact that we're Warner Brothers. Like, we're working for you. We wanted to do this. We believe your story is going to impact lives. And it's special in this industry because I came across a lot of, snakes and sharks in this world that, that cross you over fast. So you got some special people as well that take care of it.
So how did you decide to turn it into, more of like you've got it. It's not just your story. You've got a lot of people sharing similar stories of coming from really tough backgrounds or adversity, different situations. How did you decide to go that approach? And maybe if you could share a little bit about some of the people who are featured in it.
Yeah. So I've always been a realist, man. So, man, I wouldn't want to sit down and watch just the Freddie Stevenson documentary.
Come on,
so
man.
I was like, man, like, I'm not, I wasn't that type of player to where people just sit down and watch it. Like, so I truly believe, like, yeah, my story is powerful, but people don't want to hear your story until you're doing big things in the world. So I'm not in the NFL. I'm not doing any of those things. Even though I have a dope story, people are like, all right, what is he doing now? So bringing some of these people to the forefront that I've been able to connect with. Maurice Bernard from General Hospital, he interviewed me last year, and he just, like, we've been close friends since. He fell in love with my story, and we've been close. Like, you'll see him on the internet. He shares my stuff. Like, I tweeted, and I'm getting a notification. He's sharing it. I'm like, dang, I didn't even ask you to share this. He's just trying to blow me up. And then Tony Gaskins, he's a celebrity life coach, was on the Oprah Winfrey Show, best-selling author. We connected last year through a mutual friend, and he brought me out to his suite at the Bucks game, and ever since then we've been close. And he's actually from my area. We got another guy, Delvin Bro. He played in the NFL for the Saints. Has a crazy story, and I don't know how his story is in a Disney Channel movie or something like that. But we lucked up and got him before it happens because I truly believe it's gonna happen for him at some point down the future. Got some former Noles, Tyrell Lyons, Ryan Green, and I think it's dope to hear their perspectives because you got guys like this that, it didn't work out for at that level. I actually had the opportunity to play. They didn't have the opportunity. So for people to hear their perspective is dope. And Ryan Green, I echo this all the time. I truly believe to this day, he's a top 5 athlete I've ever seen in my life. So for things to go the way they did for him, I think it's a wake-up call for a lot of people that feel like they're bigger than the game, and their skill set, it trumps everything else. So Ryan, he had to see like the politics of the game, and that kind of hurt him, injuries and all of those things. But still to this day, like, if you put Ryan in a room with somebody, it's like, this guy is special. So I think it'll be dope for him to tell his story. And of course, I have my family, my mother telling her story. Everybody loves a cheeseburger story. She gets to talk. My dad, of course, he's back in the picture. They get to see his transformation story. Now he's doing big things. My fiance that stood beside me through all these problems. And I'm introducing a guy, Nano Torres. He's a big time podcaster. At one point, Like for a year, he had the top 50 business podcasts in the world. Huge entrepreneur. I think his perspective adds a lot to it, and he's a former athlete. So I think it's going to be dope. We had a different spin on it with a psychologist, Dan Ratner. And it's cool because he's one of the ones that presented the opportunity to me and kind of helped with like a lot of fun and throughout it. Like, so his perspective is huge throughout it. And I know it may sound biased, but I watch a lot of films and I'm a realist. So I truly believe this is one of the best films you're going to see this year. And I don't think it's close.
That's awesome. What was the premiere like? You had a premiere last week in Bartow or in Lakeland. Was it Lakeland? In Lakeland, I'm sorry. And what was that like? And I know you had a lot of, companies supporting it and people supporting it. Well, man, for a kid, I can't even imagine what that's like, from where you came from to have a movie premiere, kind of in your home area. What was that like for you?
It's crazy because throughout the process, I've had my doubts, just on my journey of discovery, figuring out who I am. But now it's like I'm at the point where I expect the impossible. Like I've seen things that people told me were impossible happen. And I don't know how they happen, but they happen. So now it's like, man, I go into every situation now just optimistic and expecting the best no matter what's going down. So last week, we had the premiere. It's a building that fits 1,400 people. And then a few weeks before the hurricane hits. So I'm like, man, like this gonna hurt attendance and everything like that. And my family just kept telling me, calm down, whoever needs to be in that building to hear the message tonight is gonna hear it. And that's how it happened. Like, we had a pack, like, I say like 1,400, I say we had like maybe 500 people in the building. So the bottom floor, you had plenty of people on the bottom and it looked good. But throughout the week, everything was dope. Like my family had their first opportunity to be on the front page of a newspaper, which is cool because they made so many sacrifices behind the scenes. Like I've been seeing for all these years, but for the people that actually made these sacrifices to be seen, that was special. Crumble cookies, they donated 1,200 cookies, and I think we probably still got like 300 left that we're trying to get rid of. McDonald's, later in the week, a guy from our area, he came across a story. He was like, man, I would love to put your film up on I don't know, what do you say, how you said?
On like the billboard kind of thing?
Yeah, the billboard thing, yeah. So he's like, I would love to put it up. He's like, what do you need me to put up there? And I told him, he was like, oh, that's too many words. Like, let's tighten it up. So he put it up there, just told everybody to go stream Trials of Triumph. And I was like, man, I appreciate you. Like last year at my back to school bash, we got actual McDonald's corporate to sponsor my back to school bash. And we're trying to get it done for the film. But I was like, man, I know it's going to be tough because now you're talking about them putting their name behind something that they don't know what's going on. We'll have to make some noise before we get them on board. I know for a fact, whether it happens this year or next year, it's going to happen. Like I expect the impossible now. And for him to do that and get behind the story, it was just big. And now you see everybody retweeting it. And it was a special week. My high school honored me after the event. So definitely a special week, and I'm excited to get out to Tallahassee and show it.
That's awesome. And I know a lot of former players do different charity drives. James Coleman obviously does his in Jacksonville and Tallahassee, and you've got your back to school bash. Tell people about what you do with that.
Yeah, so we didn't get an opportunity to do it this year just because of the film. I was upset about it. Like the schedule threw everything off. So we're trying to get together and maybe do something for the holidays. But yeah, I had my first annual last year. So what we did is I wanted to take a different approach. Of course, we did the food drives and all of the things for the kids, the giveaways, the food trucks, just doing a lot of different things for the community. But man, we do a lot of back to school stuff, but nobody gives back to the teachers. Right. And then I have a unique story. I remember my junior year when I broke my leg and doctors were telling me my career was over. I'm in the bed for 3 months before I go back to school. And I'm taking online classes, but they didn't have a math class. So they were like, man, you're gonna have to drop out of school and come back next year because we can't find your math class. So my math teacher from my high school volunteered to come to my house every single day, bring me my work, and teach me everything. So there's some special teachers out there. And I'll never go without speaking about her and all of these special people that we have that don't get paid for all of the work that they put in, the extra hours. Like, she wasn't getting paid for that. She just did that out of the kindness of her heart. Marnie Cobb, gonna show her love, yeah. She did that out of the kindness of her heart, and it's crazy because she's a Gator fan. At the time, she didn't know, but I'm still in the process of getting recruited and everything. But she did that as a Gator fan, man. Even though I didn't grow up like in Florida State, I always hated the Gators. So she did that out of the kindness of her heart. So we had specialties, we did giveaways, putting money in their pockets, giving them gifts, supplies for school. And that's something that we definitely want to do again.
And then, so you're going to have a Tallahassee premiere coming up as well? How people can be able to watch it in Tallahassee?
Yep, without a doubt. Yeah, the plan is to do it next Thursday. After the hurricane a few weeks, Wake Forest week, that was the plan to do it that Thursday, but the hurricane delayed all of that. So I told them, like, when you think about schedules, there's nothing more open than the bye week. Players have time to come, coaches have time to come, and then you're trying to come on a game week. It actually works out better because now they don't have to worry about cramming this in to support an alumni. Now they have a bye week, and they're like, man, we can afford to put away an hour and a half to come watch this film and support one of our own. But I think it works out better. You get some of the people from Tallahassee to come support, and I think it's just going to be a dope event. Nothing else is going on in the area. And it's two ways you can look at this. We get a win on Saturday, and guys get to come in and, trials of triumph, motivational type deal, or things don't go our way and it's the pick-me-up they need to kind of, finish the rest of the season all right. So no matter which way it goes, and I'm confident and I know, like, the opportunities are there to win these games. Just have to take advantage of them and not miss those opportunities within the game because they come back later to bite you. I think the opportunities to be there for us to win, but either way, it's going to be something that can impact some lives in a major way.
And so I know for people that haven't bought the book, they still can. They can buy it online, and then the streaming is available as well. So how do people, if they want to hear more of your story?
Yeah, they own the book. They can buy it on Amazon.com, Trials of Triumph, and the film is on Sapphire Network, SAFIRE Network.com. And make sure when you go watch the film to leave a review. Got a lot of people that will watch the film, and I do it, man. I go eat. Now I do it now, but I didn't used to do it. But once you start running the business, like, man, these reviews matter. When I go look up a restaurant, I look at the reviews. So whenever I eat somewhere now, I leave a review on the website. Just leave a review if you can, and just help us spread this message.
Awesome. So now we'll talk a little bit about football. It's Clemson week, man, and you, whether you like it or not, are part of the history of Florida State Clemson. You obviously had success against them in your career. You were part of that 2013 team that went up there and ran them out of their own building. But I'm sure everybody always wants to ask you about the 2016 game, man, and maybe the worst penalty call in the history of penalty calls. Florida State is, I think you guys were up 28-26, something like that in that game. I think 28-26. Dalvin breaks off a long run, gets in their territory. If you guys score there, you probably go up, maybe 2 scores and maybe put that game away. Instead, after Dalvin's gone, after the block, a flag comes out, they call the play back. Man, how often does that play get brought up to you? I know people tweet it at you all the time. How often do you hear about that play?
I hear about it all the time. Like, I've been getting blown up this week. It's crazy. Like, Jimbo and the coaching staff, they would always get on me about cut blocking. And that's something that I became, like, elite at doing. But then teams on film, they see it. So games is like, yo, y'all are telling me to cut regardless. But you know how dumb you feel when the guy just jumps out the way? They're like, it doesn't matter if they jump out the way to play successful. And I don't know, guys just started jumping out the way, and you have these athletic guys that can jump out of the way and go make the play. So, man, I had to start playing the angles differently so that they didn't know whether or not I was cutting. So that Clemson game, we're running a play that Dalvin was successful on the whole entire game. We ran it out of so many different formations. We run it this time, and the guy was kind of slow playing it. I was like, man, I can't get the leverage that I want because he's slow playing. He knows I'm about to cut him. And then last minute, he just sprinted. I was like, all right, four taking off now. I got to go. And it was just weird because the angle that he took, I don't know, it put me in an awkward spot. And that's why it ended up weird like that.
Kind of coming from the side a little bit.
Yeah, it put me in an awkward spot, especially since, I think Ford was trying to set up the block, but he seen that the guy was so slow playing it, so he just took off running. And yeah, it put me in a crazy spot. Even looking at it, it's an awkward block, but just for them to call that, I'm like, man, that's crazy. And I knew when he broke and I saw the flag, I knew it was on me. I knew it was on me, not because I made a bad block. It's just like, I just got a feeling they calling this on me, man. I don't know. It was just funny. And at the time, like, these refs, I remember same thing happened maybe my sophomore year against Florida. I'm blocking Dante Fowler, and I pancake him. And for some reason, they just called a holding. I'm like, yo, what's going on? So that was like the same flashback I had at that moment. I was like, I hope they don't try to do this. And it's ironic, everybody asks me about that, but they don't ask about the year before. And 2 years before, we beat Clemson without Jameis. And me and Carlos drove all the way down the field on Clemson and beat those guys in overtime. Nobody asks about that.
It's crazy. In that game. So you guys find out a couple days before the game, like a few days before the game, that Jameis is going to miss a half. Then it's the night before the game, I think, when you guys find out he's going to miss the whole game. The university decides Jameis is going to miss the whole game. You got Sean McGuire is going to play quarterback, and you guys still beat Clemson. I mean, that game was crazy. What was it like going into that game? How did you guys not get discouraged, I guess? I mean, Jameis is the best player in the country, and you find out the night before you're not going to have him the whole game.
And those teams, man, we had a special spirit. Like, just 2013 and 2014, there was no game that we didn't feel like we can win.
Right.
Even when Jameis went down, I was like, man, we're going to find a way to win. We're going to find a way to win. And that was just our mindset. Like, you've seen it. Crazy things happen. Like, I tell you now, I expect the impossible. Look at the situation at the end of the game, Sean to Rashad. That play, the defender just trips down. It's like, we aren't really having success on offense, and then it happens. Then you get the overtime. We haven't really been able to drive the ball, and then all of a sudden they can't stop the run on us. Right. Like, this team just found a way to win, and that's ultimately what we knew what we would do.
So your freshman year, 2013, you guys win the national title, and you guys had, I mean, did you understand at the time how special that was, and that you may not get? I mean, you might not get another chance for this, and you end up not winning another national title. Could you appreciate it, even though it was your first year?
For me, yeah, I could appreciate it because I went to high school that never went to the playoffs. So for me, it was like, oh, okay, I never held a trophy before outside of Pop Warner, but yeah, it's like it was definitely special. But the next year, we thought we would be back there, and just to see us not get there, especially with, I feel like, just talent wise, I felt like that 2014 team was just right up there, but the 2013 team just had a different mentality, and that's where we kind of lost at the end. We didn't have that same mentality, and it kind of cost us against Oregon. Not kind of, it cost us a lot. They blew us out. But
I still say though, man, and I'll say this till I'm buried. You guys are the better team. I just think,
without a doubt,
it's just a crazy game where Dalvin, who never really fumbled a couple times, and it just kind of, like you said. I mean, you guys that whole season, you guys were kind of like, it was almost like you're playing against yourselves. Like, you make some mistakes, get behind, then come back and just blow the other team out. And then it just kind of got to, like, played that game one too many times, maybe. I don't know.
I think we just played it with the wrong team. That's all it is. You go against a no-huddle team,
right?
That has perfected their system. That's all. I think if we're just going against a regular spread or pro-style team, I don't think it happens. But the no-huddle teams, they put you in a situation where communication is a factor. I know on defense, they had a lot of problems with the players not being called on defense when they're snapping the ball. So the players were mad and all of those things. And then on offense, once we weren't able to keep up with that pace, that's when they got ugly fast.
So, obviously it's, it's been a tough couple of years for the Florida State football team the last few years since you left. Really, not long after you left, Freddie, things started to kind of go downhill, and they're starting to turn around a little bit. It seems like this season. What have you thought about the program the last couple of years under Mike Norvell and kind of how this season's gone, and like, what do you feel about the program's direction, I guess?
Yeah, I think just looking at the past few years under him when he started up to now, just looking at the growth we made in a short time period, like the biggest thing you saw, the first year was something that you should never even have to question as a football player. And that's to discipline, making sure you fight through the game. Guys were quitting those years before, and you've seen the team, especially last year against Notre Dame, that was down early, and it probably should have ended up being a blowout, but they didn't give up and they fought themselves back into that game. And that's a mindset that came from the top down. Those guys weren't thinking that way. And we saw it starting to happen when I was leaving out. The shift started to happen, and for so many years, guys they would quit when they got down. You see fights, all over the place. It would just look like a clown show. So to get us back to that point, that was the first step. Now we're in a position where any game on our schedule, we can win. How long have we said that? Like, how long has it been since we said that? And the past few weeks, we let something slide. I think Wake Forest came out from the beginning, and we didn't play our game, but I feel like Wake Forest kind of dominated that game. Mm-hmm. We fought and we put ourselves in a position where we could win late, but I still think from top to bottom, like when you talk about playing a 4-quarter game, Wake Forest dominated 3 of those quarters. Right. And we played a good quarter and almost put ourselves back in the game. But last week is the week I felt like we let it slip away. But still, if you would have told fans that we'd be 4-2 at this point, everybody had us losing the LSU game. If you told them we'd be 4-2, man, they'd take it. Now all of a sudden everybody wants Coach gone. My prediction before the season was 8-4, and it wasn't that these guys couldn't win this game. It's just ultimately we still have a lot of holes that need fixing. Like against Wake Forest, if our O-line wasn't hurt, it was shored up. We had more depth on the O-line. We probably go back and win that game. We could have scored that drive. I think the entire game shifted, but not being able to get to score that drive where we had the holding penalty. I think that shifted the entire game, and then now I know Coach won't say it, but we have our struggles in the kicking game, and it absolutely changes the way you can call the game offensively. I hope that our kicker figures it out and has this Tate moment. Like Tate, it was just special to see that moment against Louisville where he struggled with confidence his whole entire career, and then he just grew up in front of our eyes against Louisville. And I'm hoping that Fitzgerald has that moment, but as a coach, you have to back your guys, but those struggles, man, it's just hard to rely on that, especially when you've given them so many opportunities and you got burnt because of it. So it changes the way that you can call the game offensively, and it's tough because he wants Fitz to have this Tate moment as well, but it's like, man, coach loses too many games. You see what the fan base is doing; they want him fired after seeing all the growth. So he can't allow that to be the situation that, ultimately hurts the team. So you have to balance the two of those out.
Yeah, I think they think, it seems like, we talked to Ryan this week, and he said that, he had switched his approach, his mechanics of how he kicks in the offseason, and was trying it early this season. It obviously wasn't working. So he switched back a few weeks ago, but apparently it takes a couple weeks to kind of get your body back into exactly what you were doing. So he thinks last week was the best he's felt. And then, he did make the 47-yarder. So maybe they do have that solved going forward. We'll have to see. It could be big, certainly in this Clemson game and in these games the rest of the way. Last thing I wanted to touch on, man, is your Twitter account. Is it StruggleMade? Is it 105? StruggleMade 105? Yep. And the 105 is from the $5 from the cheeseburger, right? For people that are on Twitter, I just encourage you to follow Freddie because it's a sea of negativity usually on Twitter, and even people that are friends will argue and fight and be negative, and fans look, it's a chance for everybody to vent. But I just, you're a positive guy on there, and it seems like really in all situations. So I just want to encourage people to do that, and thank you for doing that, man, because it can be a real negative place sometimes. But I think you're one of the shining lights on Twitter, and so it's cool. I appreciate you doing that.
Man, that's how I live my life now. It's so easy. You see so much negativity in the world on a daily basis. I'm not going to it's already hard enough trying to overcome that and, be optimistic about the day. So I'm not going to make it worse than push negativity out of my mouth, because now I'm bringing myself down, bringing the people down around me. So never, that's something I'm never going to do. I'm always the realist about the game. If I feel like it's something that we could have done better, it's like that's every game. Opportunities, even if you win, opportunities left on the field. So I'm always going to be a realist, but you can see the light, the growth, so many things that are positive from now. Like I said, years ago when he came in, it was terrible, the culture we had before, and the things that he's been able to change. Man, it's beautiful. You see so many people that switch fast. Like next, he gets a win against Clemson. The best coach ever going to win the national championship next year. But I said the LSU game, even though, we almost fumbled that one at the end, it's like you just seen something in this team that he's been able to instill over the past few years. No matter what hits this team, and you saw it against Louisville. Louisville should be the game where everybody just watches and shuts up. You want to fire this coach that came in with his backup QB that had no confidence, and everybody told him to throw this kid to the wolves. It was over for him. He would never do anything. And he got this kid to believe in himself and look like he can ball. Right. Like this kid believes he can ball again. And this coach did that. And you've seen that with Jordan Travis as well. Everybody was like, oh, draft Jordan Travis away. And then Jordan Travis, the year he's been having, of course, last week he didn't have his best game, but up until that point, man, like he's taken a major step forward. And that's ultimately from the coaching staff down. They got these kids that believe in themselves, and ultimately you hear them say every week, trust your training. So their training is getting these kids prepared that. So you should be able to make these plays. Sometimes we don't want to blame the players. Like there are opportunities there in each and every game. Like last week, you go back to the game, you have a lot of drops that could have put this game, made it a 3-score, 4-score game early to where you don't have a situation like that. And then now you're blaming the coaches at the end. It's like, yeah, you get into these tight situations and you would love for some calls to be a little bit different. It happens. But then it's like, you got to protect your coach in this situation. Make those plays. Right. It's a bottom line business at the end of the day. We all have to do our job. So players got to make plays when they're there. And coaches got to, and we're not going to be perfect, but the standard is still the standard. You hear it all the time. That's what's required of us. So I think just from what I've seen and the steps we've taken forward as a program, I believe we got our guy. And if you continue to keep searching for another guy, you're gonna have 8 coaches within 14 years. And these guys, you still got guys on this team that played under Jimbo. Right. So what would it look like if one of these guys had the red shirt for whatever reason, and then next year they come into an all new coach? Not, you know what I'm saying? So some of the stuff that we hear in the fan base is just silly. Like you got fan bases you got people in the fan base still arguing about the old coach. It doesn't matter. They're not here anymore. Like Jimbo's my coach. I love him, but he's not here anymore. Right. Coach Norvell is our coach, and I'm rocking with him. As long as he's our coach, I'm rocking with him, and I love what he's doing with the program. You're not always going to be perfect, but be Coach Norvell.
Awesome. Great stuff, man. So one more time, if you just want to tell people again, so the book, Trials to Triumph, they can buy it at Amazon, and then and leave a review. Make sure you leave a review. And then Sapphire Network, if you want to share that again.
Yep. The book is on Amazon. The film is on sapphirenetwork.com, SAFIRE network.com. Make sure to get those. And we got the clothing line. I didn't even mention the clothing line, triumph105.com. So when we started this,
say that one more time.
It's triumph105.com, TRIUMPH105.com. And that's ultimately when you talk about the book and the film. Years ago, when I started the clothing brand, I started it with the vision of these things, just to be something motivational. I knew actually when I launched the clothing line, I was almost done with my book. So everybody's like, why are you launching the clothing line? Like, what's going on? And then now they see everything playing out, and a lot of those words are starting to shift. So it started with the clothing line, and now we have the film. So make sure you got your gear as well.
All right, sounds good. Well, thanks, man, and stay in touch, and we'll definitely want to see what next projects and endeavors you have going on. People can follow you, as we said, at Struggle Made 105 on Twitter, and then you got the websites for all of your different platforms as well. And thanks for taking the time, man. Thanks for all you're doing, and look forward to seeing what comes next in the Freddie Stevenson chapter. Thanks, man.
Thank you.